Don't skip it because the interesting part is waiting for you at the end. Comment your thoughts below and subscribe to the channel. Like, if you like listening to horror stories.
In the fog-choked town of Black Hollow, Massachusetts, 16-year-old Emma Grayson carried a secret heavier than the damp air that clung to her skin. She could see how long someone had left to live. It wasn't a gift she'd asked for, more like a curse that slithered into her life when she was a kid after a fever dream that left her trembling and changed. When she looked at someone, a shimmering aura hovered around them like a ghostly halo. Green meant they had decades ahead. Yellow warned of accidents or sickness lurking like shadows. Red was the worst. Red meant death was close, maybe hours away, whether by murder, suicide, or some cruel twist of fate. Emma hated it. She'd seen her grandmother's red aura the night before the old woman's heart gave out, and the memory still clawed at her insides. Today was Emma's first day at Black Hollow High, a crumbling brick school that smelled of mildew and forgotten dreams. She was 16, a junior desperate to start fresh after her family's move from Boston. Her mom said Black Hollow was a chance to reset, but Emma felt like she was stepping into a trap. She arrived early, her sneakers squeaking on the linoleum as she slipped into room 204. The classroom was empty, the fluorescent lights buzzing like dying insects. She sat by the window, her breath fogging the glass, and tried to imagine herself laughing with new friends, blending in, being normal. But her pulse quickened. What if she saw red again? What if she couldn't hide her fear? The door creaked open and a boy shuffled in. Liam Carter, 17, with messy black hair and a skateboard tucked under his arm. Emma's stomach dropped. A crimson aura pulsed around him, vivid as fresh blood. Her hands gripped the desk, nails digging into the wood. Not again, she thought, her heart hammering. Liam glanced at her, offering a shy smile, oblivious to the death sentence glowing around him. Emma forced a nod, her throat tight. Maybe it's a mistake, she told herself, but she knew better. Her gift was never wrong. Then came Sarah Nguyen, 16, a girl with long dark hair and a laugh that lit up the room. She bounced in, texting furiously, her backpack slung over one shoulder. Emma's breath caught. Sarah's aura was red too, a deep, angry scarlet that seemed to writhe like flames. Emma's vision blurred with panic. 2 red auras in one room? That wasn't normal. She'd never seen more than one at a time. Her mind raced. Car accident, school shooting. Her palms grew slick with sweat. One by one, more students trickled in. Jake, the football jock. Mia, the quiet artist. Ethan, the kid who always wore headphones. Every single one of them was wrapped in a red aura, the color so intense it made Emma's head throb. She pressed her back against the chair, her breath shallow. What the hell is happening? She turned to the window, hoping for a glimpse of normalcy, but her reflection stared back, and her blood ran cold. Her own aura, once a steady green, was now a pulsing, violent red. She stifled a scream, her hand flying to her mouth. This can't be real. Her mind spiraled. Was it a gas leak? A bomb? A plague? She'd read about disasters that wiped out entire towns. Black Hollow was old, its streets lined with sagging Victorian houses and secrets buried in the soil. Maybe something ancient and evil was waking up. Her eyes darted to the clock, 7:45 a.m. Class would start soon. She had to do something, warn someone, get out. but her legs felt like lead, pinned by the weight of 30 red auras suffocating the room. The door swung open again and Ms. Evelyn Harper, the history teacher, strode in. She was in her 40s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense bun. Emma's gaze locked on her, and her heart skipped. Ms. Harper's aura was green, a vibrant emerald that cut through the sea of crimson like a beacon. The teacher shut the door with a heavy thud, her heels clicking as she moved to the front of the class. "Good morning, everyone," she said, her voice calm, almost too calm. Emma's skin prickled. Why was Ms. Harper the only one untouched? Was she immune to whatever was coming? Or was she part of it? Emma's imagination ran wild. Cults, conspiracies, something straight out of a horror movie. She glanced at her classmates, their red auras pulsing in sync like a heartbeat counting down. Liam was doodling in his notebook. Sarah was whispering to Mia. They had no idea. Emma's chest tightened with a mix of dread and determination. She couldn't just sit here and wait for death to claim them all. "Ms. Harper," Emma blurted, her voice shaking. The teacher raised an eyebrow. I think we need to evacuate. Something's wrong." The words sounded insane, but she didn't care. She had to try. The class went silent. Liam looked up, confused. Sarah frowned. Ms. Harper's smile was thin, almost amused. "Evacuate? Whatever for, Emma?" Her tone was syrupy, but there was an edge to it, like a knife hidden in velvet. Emma's mouth went dry. How could she explain without sounding like a lunatic? I have a bad feeling, like something terrible's about to happen." Her voice cracked, and she felt the weight of every stare in the room. Ms. Harper stepped closer, her green aura glowing brighter, almost blinding. "A bad feeling?" she repeated, her eyes narrowing. "Black Hollow is a safe place, Emma. You're new here. You'll learn." She turned to the class. "Let's begin today's lesson." Emma's heart pounded. She's not listening. She glanced at the door, calculating the distance. Could she run? Warn the principal? But what if the danger was already inside? The red auras seemed to pulse faster, louder, like a drumbeat only she could hear. She noticed something else. Miss Harper's shadow on the wall. It didn't match her movements. It twitched, stretched, like it had a life of its own. Emma's breath hitched. She didn't know what was coming, but she knew one thing. Ms. Harper's green aura wasn't a sign of safety. It was a warning. Something was wrong with this town, this school, this woman. And if Emma didn't act fast, the red auras would claim them all. She gripped her backpack, her mind racing for a plan as the teacher's shadow grew longer, darker, reaching for her across the floor. In the snowy hamlet of Pine Creek, Vermont, 7-year-old Noah Bennett couldn't contain his excitement. Christmas was here, and with it the promise of new beginnings. He was about to graduate from Pine Creek Kindergarten and start first grade at the big elementary school across town. His small, cozy house was decked with twinkling lights, and the air smelled of cinnamon and pine. But for Noah, Christmas wasn't just about presents. It was about magic. He believed in Santa Claus with every fiber of his being, and on Christmas Eve he knelt by his bed whispering his wish. A shiny blue backpack and a pencil case with stars on it. He squeezed his eyes shut, picturing Santa soaring through the starry sky, his sleigh piled high with gifts. Christmas morning dawned, cold and crisp, but Noah's heart sank when he raced to the tree. No presents, no backpack, no pencil case. The living room was eerily quiet, the trees' lights flickering like they were mocking him. Tears stung his eyes as he ran to his parents' room. "Mom, Dad, Santa didn't come," he wailed, his voice trembling with betrayal. His mom, Clara, pulled him into a hug, her flannel pajamas warm against his cheek. "Oh, sweetie, Santa's probably just running late. He's got a lot of kids to visit, you know." Her smile was reassuring, but Noah saw the worry in her eyes. His dad, Tom, ruffled Noah's hair. "Tell you what, champ, I'll go check the mailbox. Maybe Santa left something there." He grabbed his coat and stepped into the snow, the door creaking shut behind him. Noah pressed his face to the window, watching his dad's figure disappear into the swirling flakes. The wind howled, carrying a strange chill that made Noah shiver. Minutes passed, and Noah's hope began to fade. Then came a loud knock at the door. Noah's heart leaped. "Dad's back!" he shouted, racing to open it. But when he swung the door wide, his breath caught. Standing on the porch was a towering figure in a red suit, his white beard gleaming under the porch light. Santa Claus. His eyes twinkled, but there was something off about them. Too bright, too sharp. Noah's excitement mingled with unease. In the yard, his dad lay sprawled in the snow, still dressed in a Santa costume he must have worn to surprise Noah. "He's just sleeping," Noah told himself, but his stomach twisted. "Ho, ho, 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 ho!" Santa boomed, stepping inside. The floorboards groaned under his weight. Noah's mom gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Santa?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Santa's grin widened, and he opened his arms. Clara hesitated, then stepped forward as if drawn by some invisible force. When Santa's arms closed around her, a strange light pulsed from his hands. Clara's body shimmered, and in an instant she transformed. Her flannel pajamas became a red suit, her brown hair hidden under a white beard. She was Santa Claus now, her eyes glowing with that same unnatural brightness. Noah's heart raced, a mix of awe and fear. "Mom?" he whispered. She didn't answer, just smiled, that eerie smile. Santa, the first Santa, turned to Noah, his massive hands reaching down. "Your turn, little one," he said, his voice deep and resonant, like it came from somewhere ancient. Noah tried to back away, but his feet felt glued to the floor. Santa lifted him effortlessly, and a wave of cold energy surged through Noah's body. His vision blurred, and when it cleared, he was different. He felt the weight of a red coat, the itch of a beard. He was Santa Claus. The room spun. Noah's mind screamed, but his body moved on its own, following the two other Santas out into the snow. The wind howled louder now, carrying whispers of other voices, other children. Noah's eyes darted to the yard where his dad was stirring, his own Santa suit glowing faintly. "What's happening?" Noah wanted to cry out, but his new form wouldn't let him. The three Santas climbed into a sleigh that appeared from the shadows, its runners gleaming like bone. As they took off into the sky, Noah saw Pine Creek below, its houses flickering with red light. And in every window he saw more Santas, their eyes glowing, their smiles fixed. The sleigh soared higher, and Noah's heart pounded with a terrible realization. This wasn't a gift, it was a curse. Santa wasn't one man, he was many, a legion of stolen souls bound to his will. And now Noah was one of them, forever trapped in a Christmas nightmare, delivering gifts that would claim more children for the endless winter. In the gritty town of Ironvale, Ohio, 32-year-old Riley Parker was chasing a dream that felt more like a noose. A comic book artist with a cult following, Riley had poured everything into their studio, a cramped loft above a pawn shop, its walls plastered with sketches and coffee stains. Their latest project, a gritty supernatural series, was their shot at the big leagues, but the pressure was crushing. Their regular assistant, Jamie, had taken leave after a wrist injury, forcing Riley to hire a temp named Caleb, a 25-year-old art student with a knack for detail but a vibe that set Riley's nerves on edge. Riley was experimenting with a hyper-realistic style, a departure from their usual cartoonish flair. To nail the anatomy, they'd splurged on a life-sized mannequin, its blank face and jointed limbs eerie under the studio's fluorescent lights. Caleb was good, too good maybe, but strange. Every time Riley left the loft, they'd return to find things slightly off. A pencil rolled across the desk, a sketchbook open to a page they hadn't touched. Riley chalked it up to paranoia, but the unease grew like mold in the corners of their mind. One rainy evening, Riley came back from a coffee run to find the loft in chaos. Their bedroom, a small alcove off the main studio, was trashed. Clothes were strewn across the floor, books knocked off shelves, and the mannequin lay sprawled on the bed, its limbs twisted at unnatural angles. Fury surged through Riley. They stormed into the studio where Caleb was hunched over a drawing tablet, oblivious. "What the hell did you do to my room?" Riley shouted, their voice echoing off the brick walls. Caleb blinked, his face a mask of confusion. "What? I didn't touch your room?" His tone was defensive, but his eyes flickered with something else. Guilt? Fear? Riley didn't care. They grabbed Caleb's backpack and flung it toward the door. "Get out, now!" Caleb's jaw tightened, but he gathered his things, his movements jerky. As he reached the door, he spun around, his voice low and venomous. "You're the freak here, Riley. I know what you're hiding." The words hung in the air, sharp and cryptic, before Caleb slammed the door behind him. Riley stood frozen, their anger giving way to confusion. Freak? Hiding? They shook it off, blaming Caleb's outburst on bruised ego. With the deadline looming, Riley dove back into work, alone. The loft felt emptier now, the silence oppressive. They worked late, the city's hum fading as midnight crept closer. By 2 a.m., Riley was bleary-eyed, their hand cramping around a stylus. A sudden stomach cramp sent them to the bathroom, the mannequin's blank stare following them from the corner. When they returned, their phone buzzed on the desk. A notification glowed on the screen. Failed facial recognition attempt, 2:03 a.m. Riley's heart stuttered. They lived alone. No one else was here. With trembling fingers, they unlocked the phone and opened the photo snapped during the failed attempt. The screen filled with the mannequin's face, its smooth, featureless surface pressed close to the camera, as if it had leaned in to try unlocking the phone itself. Riley's breath caught, their pulse roaring in their ears. They spun around expecting to see the mannequin on the bed where they'd left it, but it was gone. The loft was silent save for the faint creak of floorboards. Riley's eyes darted to the shadows where the mannequin stood upright, its head tilted slightly as if watching them. That's impossible, Riley thought, their mind scrambling for logic. They hadn't moved it, they hadn't heard it move. A low hum filled the air like static from a broken radio. The mannequin's limbs twitched, a jerky motion that made Riley's skin crawl. They backed toward the door, their hand fumbling for the knob, but the hum grew louder, vibrating in their bones. The mannequin's blank face seemed to shift, shadows pooling where eyes should be. Riley's phone buzzed again, another notification. Failed facial recognition attempt. They didn't dare look at the screen. The loft's lights flickered, plunging the room into darkness for a heartbeat. When they flared back on, the mannequin was closer, inches away, its featureless face looming. Riley screamed, stumbling backward, but the door wouldn't budge. The hum became a voice, a whisper that slithered into their mind. "I know what you're hiding." Caleb's words, but not his voice. Something older, hungrier. Riley's dream was slipping away, replaced by a nightmare they couldn't escape. The mannequin wasn't just a prop, it was alive, awake, and it wanted something from Riley, something they didn't even know they had. In the remote hills of Widow's Gap, Tennessee, 28-year-old Officer Lucas Hayes was the newest recruit to the county sheriff's department. Fresh from the academy, he was eager to prove himself, but his first solo case sent a chill down his spine. A wealthy recluse, Harold Vance, had been found dead in his isolated cabin, hanged in his study. The call came from a villager, their voice shaky over the crackling line. Lucas grabbed his notepad and drove his cruiser through the winding, fog-draped roads to Widow's Gap, a place locals whispered about, a village where time seemed to stand still. The villagers greeted Lucas at Vance's cabin, their faces etched with grief that felt rehearsed. They were a tight-knit bunch, their clothes patched and their eyes sharp, watching Lucas like hawks. The cabin was grand but decaying, its windows cloudy with grime. Inside, Lucas found Vance's body, the rope creaking as it swayed. The man's face was a mask of agony, his fingers clawing at his neck, scratch marks raw and red. Lucas's stomach churned, but he forced himself to stay professional. On the desk lay a suicide note scrawled in shaky handwriting. "I'm alone, no family, no purpose. My wealth goes to the village, split evenly. Forgive me." The villagers crowded around, their voices overlapping as they painted Vance as a lonely soul, broken by isolation. "He had no one," said Martha, an older woman with a knitted shawl. "Kept to himself, poor man." Others nodded, their eyes never leaving Lucas. He jotted down their statements, his pen scratching loudly in the oppressive silence. "Cases like this happen," he said, his voice steadier than he felt. "Lonely folks, no kin, it's tragic." He offered condolences, but his skin prickled. Something was wrong. The room told a different story. The study was a mess. Books spilled from shelves, a heavy oak bookcase tipped against the wall, papers scattered like leaves. Vance's expression wasn't peaceful, like suicides often were. It was tortured, his eyes wide with terror. And those scratch marks, too deep, too desperate. Lucas's training screamed at him, this wasn't right. But the villagers' stares bored into him, their presence suffocating. He noticed their hands, calloused, strong, not the hands of grieving neighbors, but of people who'd worked together, planned together. Lucas's heart pounded as he moved through the cabin, pretending to take notes. He saw footprints in the dust, too many for one man. A broken glass by the door. A faint smell of kerosene, though no lamp was lit. His mind raced. Murder staged as suicide, the village complicit, but why? The inheritance? Something darker? Widow's Gap had a reputation. Folks said the hills were cursed, that the village made pacts with things older than the trees. Lucas had laughed it off as superstition, but now, standing in Vance's tomb-like cabin, he wasn't so sure. He stepped outside, the villagers trailing him like shadows. "I'll file the report," he said, forcing a smile. "Suicide, like you said." They nodded, but their eyes gleamed with something predatory. Lucas climbed into his cruiser, his hands shaking as he gripped the wheel. He drove away, the cabin shrinking in his rearview mirror, but the villagers' faces lingered in his mind. He hadn't mentioned the scratches, the bookcase, the kerosene. He hadn't mentioned the note's handwriting, which didn't match the steady script in Vance's ledger. He hadn't mentioned the way Martha's shawl had a tear stained with what looked like blood. Lucas knew the truth would trap him. If he spoke up, he'd never leave Widow's Gap. The village would swallow him just as it had Vance. As he drove, the fog thickened, and he swore he saw figures in the trees, their eyes glowing like embers. His radio crackled, but no voice came through. Just a low, guttural hum that made his bones ache. Lucas kept driving, vowing to bury the case, to forget. But deep down, he knew Widow's Gap wasn't done with him. The village had tasted his fear, and it was hungry for more.